the Indian diet in general is already quite gut centric. For some of us as adults, we've just overdone it with the package and process and frying and all of that. But the basic Indian diet, where you have your dal and your yogurt and your sabzis and all of that, it is fine as long as we keep it balanced. And the world actually now is possibly waking up to this fact that we've actually grown up and is a part of our DNA. As a part of most cultures, especially Indian culture, a chubby baby equals to a healthy baby. So, would you like to kind of bust that myth of chubby baby equals healthy baby? I really want parents to focus on creating a happy environment and not force feeding. Hi, I'm Sneha Javeri, your fellow mommy friend and the host of Mama Approved, a podcast where I ask all your pressing questions to the best people in their field. Today we have with us Sanchita Daswani, a child nutrition consultant whose mission is to empower parents in their starting solids journey. Hi, Sanchita. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so grateful. And this is just amazing that we're being able to sit down like this and talk about something that's so important to all of us as
Yeah, thank
mothers.
you for having me here.
So, to dive straight into it, and of course, I've consulted with you for my second one, so I can vouch for the expertise firsthand. And I really want to share this experience with as many mothers as I can. Um, you talk about the three pillars of starting solids. So I would love for you to explain what these three pillars are and why is it important for us as mothers to know what these three pillars are.
Yeah, today being a parent is so difficult, right? Because there's so much information out there. And see, the point is, we all want to do the best for our kids. We want them to eat well, we want them to have a good relationship with food. But today, we are so overwhelmed with the information that so many times it's hard for us to figure out what makes sense, what is the right way to start solid. So I always tell parents, there's a few things I really want you to keep in mind to make sure that your child actually builds a good relationship with food. So, the first pillar, which is the most important thing, is that when you start solids, do not focus on quantity. We're so obsessed as parents, and oh no, they only had two bites today. Oh, yay, they finished the bowl of ragi porridge. That was a great meal. Our focus is so much on that. And you know what? It's not our fault because we've grown up that way. We can't leave till we finish the plate, right? So, but you have to remember when you're starting solids with your child, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. It's about them learning the skills of eating. You're giving them food they've never seen before. You can't expect them to just gobble it up and down that food. It has to be a process where they're learning the skills, they're feeling how it is in their body, they're picking up the spoon, they're chewing, they're interacting with the food. And remember, guys, that the first year of life, milk is the primary source of nutrition. So, in that way, when you know milk is there, use meal times as an activity to build the skills of eating. We are just so focused on, oh, they didn't eat now, what do we do? And we panic and we don't realize that they're learning about food, they're enjoying the process. So, first thing, don't worry about quantity. Really take time to let them build a relationship with food. The second thing I want parents to remember is that don't stick to the same foods for too long. You have to allow your child to explore. A lot of parents, when I talk to them, they say, oh, we did apple for 7 days, banana for 3 days, or rice cereal, dal ka pani. This window from 6 to 9 months is the time to let your child explore all different foods and flavors. And they say the more variety you do in 6 to 9 months, the stronger their taste buds, less chances of picky eating, and the stronger their gut as well. So don't stick to the same foods. I know a lot of parents are doing dal rice every day, and that's okay. It's a superfood for Indian families, but make small changes. Do a different dal. Go ahead and add your oils, seeds, seasonings. Don't be afraid of giving your child tasty, nutritious foods. So that would be the second point. And the third point is I really want parents to focus on creating a happy environment and not force feeding. So I think we forget our kids are humans and that Okay, sure, they'll sit. We start meal times, we put them in the high chair and we sit, and then we have like three people staring at them, and we just expect them to perform. Like just eat and eat and eat. I want you to focus on connection instead of just getting them to eat. So eat with them, show them how you're chewing it, interact with the food as well, talk to them about food, teach them about food, make it a positive place and not just open your mouth, come on, one more bite, eat, eat, eat. So this force feeding, sure, in the beginning we're all happy as parents because we're like, okay, we got them to finish the bowl, it's fine. But then what's happening is that the long term effects is that when your child goes out in the world and they're in university or a friend's house, they have no idea how their body feels. They don't know how much they need to eat. So just for our short-term happiness, it's ending up in really long-term negative effects. I mean, 1 in 10 obese children will be from India by 2030. Half of the kids are picky eaters today. Just looking at those statistics, as parents, we really need to take a step back and think, what are we doing at meal times that is leading to these things?
Yeah. No, I hear you because when I was weaning my first, I've made all these mistakes. And she is like the poster child of picky eating, literally. Um, so, and we've done all this. Like, we've done this whole dal ka pani, weaning with apple first for 1 week. It's also because here, when we start solids, the whole concept is do one fruit a day, one fruit a week, then start a vegetable. And then when I consulted with you, it literally I had to change my mindset because I was like, "Oh, we're giving something new every day. Oh my god, this is like insane." So I was like eating literally what my younger one was eating. Every time she would eat a breakfast, the breakfast was so interesting that I was also eating that breakfast with her. So I think you're right. They do need variety, and I love the whole point of it being an activity. I think when we shift the focus from like food and that stress about the mother's guilt about one bowl and one katori and one this, if we just remove all that and make this happy, make this an activity, I think we as mothers also will be more chilled, and the kids also will enjoy this whole process a little bit more. So I love that point of it making it like an activity.
Yeah.
But would you say picky eating is a personality trait, or is it just incorrect, an incorrect method that has been used when we are starting solids?
Yeah, so it's interesting because there are a lot of people who will come and tell me that, look, I did baby led weaning. I gave my child everything. They ate by themselves. And suddenly now they're 1 years old and they don't want to eat. They're throwing the food. But what is happening in this situation is that as parents, we also forget that our kids are human. They are going to develop their taste preferences. They are going to have their moods, just like you and me, right? Like, some months we'll want to eat a certain breakfast, or some days we're very hungry, some days we're not. But why is it then with our kids, we're like, no, you have to eat the same amount at the same time every day? So I think as parents, we have to understand that I don't want to call it picky eating, but all kids go through phases where they might want to eat certain things, they might not eat as much. So, first thing I want parents to understand is there's a sense of a pattern of normal behavior that is okay. So if once in a while your child doesn't eat dinner properly, or only wants carbs that day, it's totally okay. Or if they're teething, they only want to gnaw on stuff, we just automatically conclude, oh, they're a picky eater. No, they're going through normal phases of life like us. Picky eating is when they are only having maybe less than 20 foods at, like, that's it, they will not try anything, or they'll refuse to try new foods, or they're completely avoiding a certain food group, like they will eat zero fruits. Then that that is picky eating and there's something that we need to resolve. But to be honest, most of the time it's actually not picky eating, and the biggest thing is how we respond as parents that will make your child a picky eater. The fact that they didn't want the fruit, then what do? We run in the kitchen and we make something else and we bring it out. So what we are doing is we are creating picky eaters, when in fact what they are just saying is, my body doesn't want that fruit right now. And we panic as parents. So actually, most cases, kids are not really picky eaters, but we are kind of molding them into one by our responses. when they reject food.
Yeah, I think our conditioning also is such that we kind of take it very personally as mothers when our kids don't end up finishing, or as you're saying, my body doesn't want to eat this. And we're like, why? Why don't you want to eat this? You never want to eat this. And then you create this whole vicious circle of negativity around food. And I know this because I live this. And I'm a completely different mother with my younger one and a completely different mother with my older one because of the choices that they're making. So I'm also making incorrect choices, based on their needs and wants. So I get it, and you're right. Actually, now that you say this, it puts a lot in
And
perspective.
end of the day, I totally get it, because see, nutrition is very important. It reflects their moods, their growth, their energy, their focus. We want our kids to eat, but we need to stop, instead of just being like, no, they have to eat this amount. Say, look, I'm going to give them everything. I'm going to teach them the skills of eating so that they can start listening to their body and figuring out what their body needs. Because the reality is, look at most of us. I always get this comment, oh, but I'm fine. I turned out okay and I had to finish my food and I was fed. But to be honest, if you look at a lot of us, we're not okay. Most of us are emotional eaters. Most of us are overeaters. Most of us, as soon as the TV comes on, our brain gets a signal that we're hungry. And most of us go to nutritionists, and what's the first thing they tell us? Listen to your body. And we weren't able to do a lot of these autoimmune conditions, obesity, all of these are being traced back to how we ate in the first few years. So really, it is a big deal, and we just think we brush it off, but it's the statistics are scary today.
Yeah. Oh wow. I did not know that autoimmunes also are traced back to how we're eating as kids. That's really interesting, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Um. So you also as a part of most cultures, especially Indian culture, a chubby baby equals to a healthy baby. So when you see chubby babies, they're like, oh, this baby is healthy. When you see a lean, thin baby, you're like, oh, what's happening? Not eating well, But I remember you when in our consults, you keep telling people that don't focus on the calorie intake, don't focus on all of that, focus on just variety and all of that. So would you like to kind of bust that myth of chubby baby equals healthy baby?
Yeah, it's really sad to see that people still follow this. And again, I don't blame us, because that's what we've been told, right, our whole lives. And it like, for example, I have kids and they're super lean, if I may say so. And I always get these comments that, oh my God, like they are really skinny. And obviously for a second I'm like, oh, yeah, they are, right? And then I just think back to the fact that I just look at their meals. I look at the fact that they're balanced meals. And to be honest, a lot of kids who are a little bit heavier, it's also because of the extra packaged foods or the extra sugar being added. So a lot of the nannies and daddies will say, let them eat the cookies, let them eat this. But they're not realizing that the body's storing that as fat. And as you get older, those fat cells will multiply and get even bigger. And that's why all these hormonal issues come out at puberty, because the body's storing all of these things. So end of the day, as long as your child is sleeping well, is eating decently at the three meals, has, like, is peeing enough, is pooping, these are the signs they're meeting their milestones. These are the actual signs that we need to look at for a thriving child, instead of just their weight on the scale. Of course we want them to be in the range, of course we want them to eat a certain amount, but this chubby baby thing has got to go, because it's such old news. And I think now, as a modern Indian parent, we can make better statements than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And statements that have nothing to do with the physical appearance of a child, I think we really need to shed that. I actually heard a conversation between you and Dr. Nihar, where he was also talking about this storing where we feel like the child is lean in the younger years. And then as the child is growing older, the obesity is kind of um, growing, if I may say so. So, this actually is something that we all really need to be aware about because we feel like, oh, she's fine. She's eating all her meetha, all the cake, cookie, this, that, cupcakes, gummies, which is now a thing with the kids, and all of that. And then suddenly, before you know it, at puberty, something changes drastically. So, yeah, that's really something to remember.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Another really important debate is the dairy debate.
Mm, yeah.
So, I mean, I have my own views about a dairy diet, which I will reserve my comments, but I would love to hear what your view on dairy, feeding dairy to kids, introducing dairy or not doing it at all. What are your views?
It all started actually with my journey because when I had my kids and when they turned one, the decision came, should I move to cow's milk or not? And I remember I was all about animal rights. I don't know how the cows are treated, and we're seeing all these videos online and we don't know the quality. And I actually chose to continue with formula. And then I remember I actually moved to oat milk for a bit, and I started noticing my son was getting very hyperactive, and I was like, something's off. And then I learned about how oat milk is just carbs and is just spiking their blood sugar. Then I said, let me move to soy milk, which honestly, in terms of the comparison to cow's milk, it's the only one that's similar. Then when I moved to soy milk, I started noticing there were all these gums and fillers and all these things which can affect gut health. So then I went back and started understanding, why is dairy even there for our kids? And when I looked back at it, I realized that in the first few years, our kids are growing so much. They need that support of the calcium, protein, B12, and fat. And the reality of the situation is dairy provides you with all of these things. So, especially if you are a vegetarian kid, having yogurt, having paneer, having cow's milk actually is supporting your growth because that's what they need. They need 700 mg of calcium a day. And if they drink a good amount of milk, about 240 ml, they get 300. So it's not that you don't have to give, like a lot of people say, oh, kids don't need cow's milk. They don't need cow's milk. But by giving them that, you're actually cutting their calcium needs. They're met by half already. So I feel that everyone, it's a personal choice. But if you choose to not give cow's milk, you have to work very hard to make sure that they're getting enough calcium from other calcium rich foods. And it's totally possible if you stick to yogurt, paneer, cheese, ragi, tofu. But you know how our kids are. They have their days, they won't eat, they will eat. So I actually feel there is nothing wrong in giving dairy. Yes, a lot of us as adults now are lactose intolerant, and they're saying Indians generally are born with a bit of that intolerance. But I believe, follow literally your child's gut. How are they digesting it? Are they fine? Is their poop okay? How are their moods? You will be able to tell. So, of course, we want to get good quality cow's milk. And luckily, a lot of brands out there, especially like in India, they're really trying hard to take better care of the cows, feed them better. Of course, it's not 100% guaranteed, but we have better options out there. And I actually feel that giving cow's milk is quite beneficial. And if you choose not to give it, I'm okay with that. I have a lot of parents I work with that don't, but then we really focus on the foods as well.
Yeah, because you have to be able to supplement all of that. So we don't do cow's milk, as in, like, you know how back in the day when we were growing up, we used to have a glass of milk at 4 o'clock or glass of milk before leaving for school. So my daughter loves to have a milkshake before school. But then we do almond milk and we do the banana, and then we put all the seeds and the nut powder and all of that to kind of this. But they do have yogurt and they do have a lot of paneer and all of that. So yeah, we can't really afford for the kids to go dairy free completely, because also as an Indian household, you wouldn't know what to substitute dahi with. Like, what do you
Yeah.
substitute it
Yeah.
with? How do you have, like, paneer, dahi? Like, it's very integral to our meal times,
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that would be tough, actually. You're
Yeah, like
right.
for example, I'm in Hong Kong and they have a lot of soy, right? So they have a lot of tofu, edamame, all of that. So for them it's also easier. And I know when I went to like Bombay, it was difficult for me to find like good tofu or soy milk very easily. So you're right, it is part of the Indian diet. And if you don't want to give cow's milk, exactly what you're doing, add in the seeds and the dairy. There are a lot of vegan babies out there, but the one thing is these vegan babies are being supplemented. They are taking B12 supplements and all, because the reality is even they know, their parents know that they can't meet those needs.
Also the breastfeeding dilemma, right? So, there is now more and more people, there are two schools of thought, as you know. There are lots of mothers, me being one of them, working 8 hours a day. Breastfeeding is so difficult and so challenging once you get back to work. Also, some in some parts of the world, people choose to not breastfeed, and they're choosing formula over breastfeeding their kids and all of that. Of course, I'll say for Indian mothers, breastfeeding is like it's a form of pride. It's also, we believe it's like that golden period of nutrition that your child is getting. And then when you can't do it, when you're not able to do it for any reason, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of inadequacy that's kind of that goes hand in hand with not being able to do it. So, as a nutritionist, would you believe that whatever is lacking, suppose the child is not breastfed, is it possible to supplement that nutrition through various food groups? Or has the child completely lost out?
Hmm. So honestly, the first year, the main source of nutrition is milk. So the only options, to be honest, is breast milk or formula. So even at 6 months, when you're starting solids, I get a lot of parents saying, "Oh, we're starting solids. We want to stop feeding. We want to stop breastfeeding." But you cannot replace it because, as I mentioned, they're not eating a lot. So if you reduce your breast milk, you have to substitute it with formula. So end of the day, yes, if we compare breast milk and formula, see, formula has been made to mimic breast milk exactly the same as much as it can. The main difference between breast milk and formula is that breast milk keeps changing based on the baby and formula is standard. Breast milk also has certain prebiotics and probiotics that are not found in formula. And that's actually the main thing that's there, the difference. But formula is actually totally okay. Formula shaming needs to stop completely, and it's not that your child is missing out on major nutrients. It is totally okay. It is totally safe. Formula is the most heavily regulated food product in the world. It's so like the reason the oils, the sugars, and all are being added is because it's mimicking what's in breast milk. So I feel in the first year, you cannot look at replacing food. Replacing breast milk with food, you will have to replace it with formula because they need that quick nutrient dense source of energy.
And what, according to you, is the cutoff point? Like, you should technically give milk or formula, whatever you are, till age one?
Yeah, so we say till one, milk is the main source, breast milk or formula, and then post one, that transition will happen where food takes over because by then your child would have had a good 6 months of practice of eating. They will be on 3 meals. So that is when we cut it off. There are minimums that the baby needs to have. So at 6 months, they should have minimum 600 ml of milk, 10 months, 400 ml. So naturally, as they start eating, they will take less on their own. So that progression will happen. But milk is still around for sure till 1 year of age. And post that, if you want to continue breastfeeding, it's always beneficial, but it's not something that's mandatory.
Okay, good to know. This is because I also have grappled with this guilt because both my kids are predominantly formula fed. So I'm just like, this is really bumming out. I read a book and they were like, the flora of your gut depends on the feeding with the mother, and I'm just like, oh my god, are they predisposed to like complete destruction of gut?
I know.
So I was like, I have to ask you this question because I'm sure there are lots of moms out there who couldn't feed or chose not to feed or whatever their reasons were. But the reality is that lots of kids are being formula fed predominantly. So we need to know whether it's okay, and if any nutritionist says it's okay.
Yeah. So
So that's why I asked you that
yeah, and it's so
question.
interesting you talk about gut health because the thing is that, yes, of course, breastfed babies are getting the natural probiotics from breast milk. But the thing is, that's not the only way that a child can build good gut health. So, we don't want to isolate that. So, of course, if you're having formula, it is a packaged product. There will be certain things, but there's so many things you can do. And the good thing is for babies, what helps build their gut health? Sleep, which they're doing anyway, movement, which they're doing once they start moving, a variety of foods. So that's why I want that variety of the diet so that it feeds the different good bacteria. A vitamin D supplement also helps with gut health, which all kids are doing. So we're already doing quite a few of these things, giving them probiotics foods, which we're doing like the dahi and our idlis and dosas. So actually, like when I was learning more about gut health for kids, I realized, oh, we all are already doing quite a bit of it. So don't worry if your child is formula fed. There's so many other ways to help keep that gut health thriving.
And I feel like the Indian diet in general is already quite gut centric, as you said, because when you're traveling and you see other kids of like maybe the same age, maybe 8 months, 10 months, and they've started solids, you see the mothers because obviously purely out of convenience, giving them the packaged purees and all of that, which would be blasphemy in India because we do everything from scratch, especially when before the child turns 1. It's unheard of to give packaged purees and stuff like that to your even if the mother is working, she'll wake up at 5 in the morning, but make sure that her child is eating fresh. So I feel we're anyway doing so much in terms of gut health. And the world actually now is possibly waking up to this fact that we've actually grown up and is a part of our DNA. Right? Like that's I mean, I that's what I
Yeah, I
think.
think obviously for some of us as adults, we've just overdone it with the package and process and frying and all of that. But the basic Indian diet, where you have your dal and your yogurt and your sabzis and all of that, it is fine as long as we keep it balanced, which is what we are doing for our kids. We won't do it for ourselves, but our kids, we'll make sure it's balanced.
So another really important thing to ask you is that most of the kids, especially toddlers, are having sweet breakfasts in the morning. And there is so much now, of course, on Instagram and in the media and in books that we're reading, where people are completely now saying that no, now do not give your child these sweet breakfasts because it's spiking the GI of the child as well. And it should be a protein first breakfast or a fat first breakfast. But it's really challenging to tell your child now that I'm not going to give you that oat pancake. You cannot put honey on that pancake. And so how do we mother this situation?
Sure. It's so interesting because now for us as adults, we are finally learning about nutrition, right? Our years, we've just grown up and we're like, whatever. Now we're like, oh my God, protein and fiber and all of these things. But what is happening is then we're translating it onto our kids. But we have to remember that our kids' nutrition needs are very different than ours. So that's the first thing I want parents to understand. Like, for example, they only need 13 grams of protein a day compared to how much we need. We're trying to get to 100 or so. So, number one, their needs are very different. So, it's not that their breakfast needs to be only protein, only fat. That's more for us. For them, it is about the balance because the reality is the kids need carbs. 50% of their diet needs to be carbs. Number two, they need that fiber, and fruit is a great uh, food for kids because it has vitamin C, it has all the fiber, it has all the nutrition. So I actually feel that for kids, there's nothing wrong in giving them a sweet breakfast because what we're doing as parents now is even if you're giving that oat pancake, you're adding an egg in there. You're topping it with peanut butter. Oats does have protein as well. It has all your vitamins, it has iron. So I actually feel like my son loves oats with blueberries, but I'm adding the cow's milk, I'm adding the hemp hearts. So it's about balancing it. I don't feel we should take the restrictions that we are putting on ourselves as adults to translate for kids. Yes, we should be aware how important protein is, and let's teach our kids that so they don't wait till our age. But it's totally okay to give a sweet breakfast. Obviously, don't just give, packaged pancake. That, of course, we want to avoid. But I'm actually totally okay with it.
But we also grew up in an era where, so we are learning. Our generation, I feel, is now learning. So we are also, I think we are being a little bit more disciplined with our kids than our mothers were possibly with us because we grew up thinking Marie biscuits are healthy. That, oh, Marie biscuits are healthy, glucose biscuits are healthy. And now we're suddenly waking up to the fact that none of this is healthy. The kids can't eat any of this. So we're also actually having an awakening of our own, like, as mothers. So I think a little bit of hand holding from consultants, from people who are experts in the field really help because I think it's very confusing, like what to give, what not to give, what is a healthy snack to give your child, what should is it okay to give? Like for me, I was like, my daughter eats pancakes every single day, and every time she's eating a pancake, I'm nervous. I'm like, is this okay? Like she's eating like honey, she's eating oatmeal pancakes, she's putting bananas on the
Can I
pancakes.
tell
I'm like,
you?
what is going
Yeah,
on
like,
here?
but can I tell you all that you're giving her is all gut-friendly foods? So the oats, the banana, the raw honey, all of that is great for her gut. It's giving her that energy. And as long as you're balancing it with some protein, not like in it, some nuts, seeds, use some milk to cook it, it is actually totally fine. But I get it because even for us, so I just feel as parents, we have to give ourselves some grace and know that we are doing our best and it's okay, you know?
So another thing that is very common now is screen time and food. Because I think, of course, there are the quantum of working mothers is as it's increasing. It is tough to regulate this when you're not around. Like the child sometimes is just out of sheer convenience of the primary caregiver, who's usually maybe now not the mother. The TV is put on, and then they're feeling, at least he's eating, yeah, or at least she's eating. It's fine. Let her watch the screen and eat. But I would love to know your thoughts. They call me the Nazi at home. So, and I have very willingly taken this title, but I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so to be very honest, screen time at meals is not a great idea. I get it if once in a while it happens because it's a weekend or so, and I let my kids like watch TV and eat sometimes in a week. Totally fine. It becomes an issue when your child will not open their mouth until Coco Melon starts playing. Because see, for us as parents, what is that saying? The child is refusing to eat, so we just put the screen so they eat. So instead of looking at the root cause, why do they not want to eat? Are they too full? Are they not like are they too full from milk? Are they not hungry? Are they sleepy? Are they scared of the food because they've not had enough exposure of it? Do they know they're going to be forced? Instead of looking at the root cause, we're like, okay, let's just get it done with and let's just put the screen. So as we were talking about earlier, what's happening is then as kids get older, and then your child is out with their friends and the TV comes on, the brain actually gets a signal to eat, and that's how the overeating starts to happen because that connection is being made whenever the TV's on. I need to eat instead of listening to your actual hunger cues, and that's actually what's leading to the issues so many of us have, right? And then the other issue with the screens is that you're not building a relationship with food. You have no idea what's going in your mouth. You are just overeating. The amount of kids I've seen after eating, watching the screen, throwing up because they've been overfed because they had no idea what was going in. So I really urge parents to. I totally get it. In today's world, life is hard. We don't have the time. It takes a lot of work. You have to be very patient. So it's okay if it happens a few times a week, but it shouldn't be a habit because that honestly is going to, I need you to think of the long-term effects for your child, the long-term
Yeah,
implications.
but this is so interesting. The when the TV comes on, the brain gets a signal to eat. I think this is what is happening with most adolescents. Like when they and now most of them are on their screens. Now schools are transitioning towards only using their laptops and all of that. So the moment the screen comes on, you're hungry, and then nobody can whip up fresh things for you 24/7. So then you're going for a bag of chips or a bag of something or the other.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's exact, and I mean, I feel like a tip I give a lot of parents is if your child is addicted to screen, instead, what you can do is play an audiobook or play like some music in the background because that way, then they're just using their ears, one of their senses, so the other senses can still be present with the food. And to be honest, the reason they use screens is because they're just craving connection with us. So honestly, if you sit with them at meal times and chat with them and eat with them, they will actually sit. Of course, it's a transition, but they just want to connect.
yeah, yeah. Oh, this is a nice suggestion actually for mothers maybe who are struggling to kind of, not have their kids watch the screen while eating. I think an audiobook is a great idea.
Yeah, and the thing is that I get it because even sometimes my kids are like, we don't want to sit, we don't want to eat. Like it's they're kids, right? I would be it wouldn't make sense for me to say that, oh, just forget the screen because I get it. I'm a parent as well. But I'm like, okay, guys, let's listen to your favorite song or let's listen to this. So at least they can sit because the reality is they do just want to run around.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's so much energy, right? There's the kids today have energy that is, I don't know where it comes from also. Like it's nuts. Like so you feel like you just sit down and just eat your meal and then you can do whatever you want to do. So in the quest of that, I think we kind of take all the wrong decisions and then then there's a power struggle between us and the kids and yeah, so this is a good idea actually, an audiobook. Um, so when it comes to say slightly older kids, right? After you pass this whole phase of where your mother is choosing for you and then you have to make those choices. What are the certain foods that are non-negotiable for even the mental health of kids after the age of say 8 or 9, especially girls?
Yeah, because today, so many girls are reaching puberty much earlier. And a lot of times we were blaming dairy and cow's milk and all of that, but actually it's a lot more than that. Number one, as as parents, because we're so busy and because we have the screens, we're indoors a lot more. So actually the reason for kids reaching puberty earlier is because number one, they are living more of a sedentary lifestyle. So before I even get into food, I urge parents that as your kids get older as well, please make sure even after school they have 1 hour of outdoor play or some movement because that's actually how the body assimilates calcium or actually uses the nutrition that you're feeding them. So that is one. Number two is still don't compromise on sleep because even as they get older, and we know we've also learning that now, right? That sleep is important to restore our body. In terms of food, it's so important for girls as well. A lot of good fats. So make sure you're adding those nuts, you're adding those seeds in their diet. Add the ghee, add the oil. Now we know we want to cook with the right oils as well. And all your pulse, again, going back to our Indian diet, you have your pulses, you have your dals and your beans. All of that gives them all the protein that they need as they're getting older. So I would say that we don't need to think too much into it if you keep it a simple, balanced diet. Homemade foods, as much as you can, are actually how our kids are going to thrive. And also, if you have a child who's addicted to packaged foods and only wants to eat that, you also have to just realize how did they get into it and also start making choices within the family because they learn from what we do. Like I notice it every day, what I'm saying, what I'm eating. Our kids are picking up on that. And they will go through those phases of packaged foods and that's okay. But what I would say is then teach them hacks. Okay, you want to get an ice cream. What are you going to do before? You're going to have a handful of peanuts because then you're going to line your stomach. So when you have that ice cream, you're not going to spike your blood sugar. And after that, you're going to do 20 jumping jacks. So, end of the day, they are going to go out in the world and eat junk. But it's about prepping them for that and controlling as much as you can at home as well.
Oh my God, I'm going to try this peanut hack with
Yeah,
my
yeah,
daughter.
yeah.
This is and now we actually have slightly healthier ice creams
Yeah,
as well,
exactly.
which they're not they're not sugar free, but they're low. They're
Yeah.
vegan. They're low on sugar, no added sugar, dark chocolate. So I
We have a
think
lot of Yeah, we have a lot of better choices now as parents, and but there's also a lot of mismarketing happening. So just make sure you stay away from those no added sugars because most of the times they have the artificial sweeteners which can affect their gut. So I think now we're so lucky as parents, we have so many options, but we still have to kind of bring it down. But yeah, just teaching our kids these hacks and also like I teach my kids how to read the back of the label. Okay, does it have some protein? Does it have some fiber? Like teaching them and building that interest. They might not listen right away, but you know how like when we were kids, our parents kept telling us stuff and then it sticks in your head even though you don't want it to. I think these things will stick in their head if we really are make it a priority.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And of course, last but not least, we I want to congratulate you on your book. I think this is even though we are all in this zone of AI and all of that, but being a published author is a huge deal. And it's a matter of great pride. I'm sure you're very proud of yourself. And how did this happen? Like, how did you think you wanted to kind of delve into
Yeah, so
this?
actually, this book is with Chef Chino. So I'm sure a lot of you know her as well. She is a very famous chef in India, and she had reached out to me a few years ago saying that I want to write a baby cookbook, and I wanted a book that actually tailored to the Indian diet. Because today, when we look at all the books out there, they're like give liver and give steak, and we're like, no, but where's our ragis and our millets and the way we cook our meats. So she reached out and said, look, I want to do this, but I wanted it backed by a child nutritionist so that I know that it's not only just random recipes, but we know that it's nutrient dense and that actually when people read it, they start understanding how to make basic Indian meals more nutritious, more yummy for our kids. So in the beginning, when I spoke about give variety, don't stick to the same foods, this is what this book really helps you do. It actually helps you figure that out and how to make things that we cook in our house on a daily basis more flavorful and interesting and suitable for kids as well. And even in that book, we have our chocolate cake, we have all of those things, but a good twist to it as well. And it's all about balance. So, yeah, it was just great working with such an amazing chef who creates such yummy recipes. And then me kind of going through it and saying, okay, this is nutritious. Okay, let's add this in, let's balance it out a bit. So these recipes you can really feel good about and the whole family can enjoy it.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's not just for the kids, but even for us, it's important for us to also eat like that. As you said, they learn by example. So when we inspire them to eat well through our actions, I think that's what's gonna kind of translate into their older years. I see my mom eating home cooked meals and all of that. And today of course we've gone, as you said, we go through a whole phase of eating rubbish, eating in the canteen of the college, this, that, all of that. And then you come back to it. Eventually you are like, no, this is what I want to give my children. This is how I want to raise my children. So you're actually right. Thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing. I've enjoyed chatting with you, and I'm sure everybody who is listening to this podcast is going to be absolutely blown away by the information that they've got from you. Would you like to say something to everybody who's listening, and what are they going to get if they listen to this 30-minute podcast?
Sure. I think as parents today, we it is a very overwhelming time, but I think it's important for us to know that times are changing, food is changing, it's not the same, and it's up to us as parents to lay that foundation. And I know it can feel very stressful, but if you just take a bit of that time to understand what your child really needs, what suits your child, and just make those simple changes in the house and your attitude towards it, you can actually raise a child that will actually be able to feel safe around food, figure out how to nourish their body. And I think that's the most beautiful thing if we're able to do that.
Absolutely. That was so well said. Thank you so much, Sanchita. This was absolutely
Thank you for
amazing.
having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Mama Approved podcast. Please share, like, and subscribe to my channel and share this with all your fellow mommies who you feel will benefit from Sanchita's valuable advice.